And this week on the quad, Daniel Ryan is back, and we have so much to talk about, the highs and the lows of last weekend, the anguish, the smiles, the happiness, and what's going to happen next. And as every week, so many scumbags, so little time, but so many heroes as well. Only on JNS, only on the quad. Welcome back, everybody, to the quad. And here I am in a studio in our wonderful big desk with our incredible co-host, Emily Schrader, human rights activist and journalist, Shoshana Keats-Jaskal, founder of Chochmat Nashim, Elevating Orthodox Women's Voices, all the way from LA, Barb Heller, podcaster, actress, and all-round good soul. And for the second week in a row, our very special guest, Daniel Ryan Spaulding, comedian, and another good soul. And so here we are, ladies. I feel like I've aged, ladies and Daniel. I feel like, I think I can say ladies. Can I say ladies? Yeah. Thank you. Okay, I feel like I've aged 10 years in the last week because of the emotional roller coaster that we've gone through as a nation, individually. From Thursday, that cruel, farcical, it was just the worst thing. I think it was too much for most people. And I want to discuss one thing. I want to start discussing one thing with you. The very beginning. Many different news channels decided not to broadcast it. The Israeli media decided not to broadcast it, not to give it oxygen. But then my husband said to me, do you think that the international news channels are not broadcasting it because it makes Hamas look really bad? Because we know why we're not doing it. We're not doing it because we didn't want to put our own people through this cruel circus of hatred. But the first question I have for all of you is, do you think the news channels did it from a good place or from a bad place of not showing them up? And secondly, I just can't stop thinking about that whole, the people there who showed up with their children. This was the Super Bowl for them. The Super Bowl for them was seeing the coffins of two murdered babies, what was supposed to be their mother, and an old man who spent his life helping Palestinians from Gaza. So I need to unpack this for my own sanity. Emily, you were live broadcasting, right? How was it for you? You couldn't actually see it. You weren't broadcasting it. You were commenting on it. How did you experience it?
So, as you said, we didn't broadcast on Thursday. I don't think anyone in Israel did.
No.
But the Saturday release of the living hostages, we did broadcast. And it's pretty much been the same thing for all of these hostage releases, prisoner releases on the other side. I have very conflicted feelings about broadcasting it at all. Because on the one hand, like, you don't want to give it oxygen, but on the other hand, like, the entire international community has to see what's going on. And this is like the constant struggle that Israel faces throughout all of this. Like, we don't want to put this gore and violence of our own people all over the internet, even after October 7th. But at the same time, if we don't, then they say, oh, well, it didn't happen. Oh, well, it's not that bad. Oh, it's just resistance. I mean, if your idea of resistance is slaughtering an infant child and a 5-year-old with your bare hands, then, like, I think everyone should know that that's your perspective of what resistance is, because this is insanity.
الاحتلال دخل بجنوده أحياء اليوم بيطلع منهم فتوابين.
نصر يا خالة. It's insanity, whether it's a Jew or an Arab or any other ethnicity. Murdering children should be pretty much, accepted as something bad. And I don't understand.
Kidnapping them to begin with.
Of course, I don't understand how there's so many people who are so ready to make excuses for this. And of course, we expect that from Islamists. We do expect that from them, the excuse making. But we also see people who are defending it and trying to make it, oh, well, if there wasn't occupation, or if there wasn't this, or if there wasn't that, if this hadn't happened, or if that hadn't happened. No, there comes a point where right is right and wrong is wrong, and there's never an excuse to cross certain lines, not on either side, not for any people, and that seems to be absent from the conversation in the international community for the most part.
There's absolutely no moral compass anymore. But talking
There are people who are doing even more than what you're saying, Emily. People like Muhammad al-Kurd, who is curdles my blood. That man who talks all the time through his tuchis and says the most vile things. And he's like, no, it was a funeral. It was a respectful funeral that they gave them.
Not only that, he said it's Arab culture, that this is Arab. This is what Arab culture does.
Oh, well, if it
that
does,
is not what Arab culture does.
But there are details when we don't broadcast it. There are details that are missed. Okay,
Yes.
they put on the caskets date of arrest.
Yes.
Date of arrest.
They're soldiers
of these infants.
Or they're criminals.
And all the details of the vile images that they put on the stage. If we don't see it, and we are a people, we are human beings, and images, they're seared into our mind, right? There's a reason they use props. There's a reason they have massive banners. There's a reason they have these shows. They are projecting that they will go to the ends of the earth. They will win, and they are just, and they are strong. And when they bring the kids, I don't know if you saw this, but they have a whole a display case of weapons that the children were playing with. It was like a freaking show and tell on the side show of the funeral, and the kids are there. It's it is a recruitment.
Yes.
It is a recruitment for the next generation of terrorists. And if we don't look at it and we don't really, really analyze what they're doing, we will not understand, and people will not understand that this is who they are, and this is not going to change.
So maybe CNN should have broadcast it, and maybe that's their reason for not broadcasting it. Now to talk about that was the ebb, the low, and it got lower because then it wasn't Shiri Bibas. I mean, the cruelty, the anguish of that family, it's just beyond belief. But then, Daniel, you were there the following day when the live hostages were released. You were in the hospital, right? When Omer Shem Tov, his mother, Shelley, who we've met a number of times. Tell us about that.
Well, I just want to say that I believe that from the very beginning of the war, like, information has been suppressed by legacy media, and this war has not been covered. People have not gained access to the information, and information has been suppressed. And I believe it's intentional.
It's damage limitation for them.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely. So I think it should have been fully broadcast, talked about. I think that we should have had full transparency with how horrible it was, and people should have understood that, and people should have been talking about it. But yeah, I decided that I was going to focus on the return of the hostages who were coming back. So I went to the hospital, and it was really, we watched their little propaganda show and the subversion, and I know Omer Shem Tov's family. I know his brother and his cousin. His cousin Liat has worked so hard to advocate for him and has done so much press. And she's a young mother and has really donated spent a lot of time doing press to try to raise awareness about the hostages. And so I've always felt a real connection to his family. And it was just really, for me, like, it felt like a really full circle moment to see him come back. And it was really just spectacular to see that helicopter come back and to fly over us, and with all the people there waiting with signs. And Tal Shoman was the first hostage returned, and he's a real family man. So there was a lot of women and little kids from his kibbutz who came, and they were all singing songs, and just that really beautiful Jewish joy. Like, the comparison between good versus evil is just so obvious. It's just beyond, this distortion and this war on reality that the Muslim Brotherhood has waged on Western society is so clear to anyone with any basic sense of good versus evil. So he came back first, and then Elia Cohen and Omer Shem Tov came together. And Elia Cohen is sort of like a bit of a party boy. So everyone, it was all like, it felt like the Nova festival. Like, everyone was all in black, and they were drinking and partying. And it was such a fun juxtaposition between the soft, gentle kibbutznik women versus these sexy
guys.
hipsters. And everyone, it was so, there was something really, ethereal and magical about that return. Like it was like, Israel is, the Holy Land, and it just felt like God was bringing them back. Like there's something
But you know what's
really
so funny about that? While we were broadcasting multiple times now on the hostage release, when I was broadcasting live, we're in the hostage square. It's like raining, freezing all morning until the hostages come out. They do their little show. This last time it was raining. The second the hostages come out, sun.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was so weird. And it happened more than once too.
Yeah.
And there was a rainbow. I don't know if you saw
Yes.
it.
I saw the rainbow.
Yeah,
outside.
everybody was looking at that rainbow
Yeah.
after the terrible night and day that we'd had before with the whole Bibas story. That rainbow felt like such a, I don't know, just a sign from God that things may get better. Barb, you are a very spiritual person.
Well, first of all, we didn't talk about the keys, which I thought that was interesting. The keys for the locks of the coffins.
Oh, tell us.
Did you know that they weren't able to get in right away to the coffins, and they had to actually bomb-proof them because they didn't know, why are they screwing around with us when they actually open?
I heard that.
It's not true?
Well, there were people who reported it, and there were people who said it wasn't true, and then the other people said, well, they didn't say it wasn't true. They just said that they got in. So I'm neutral.
maybe
I'm
it's not
Switzerland
true.
on this.
Well, then we should debunk it. I don't know, but this is something that's going around. So if
But
that
they
is
did have
true,
to bomb. They did check for bombs. That they did do.
Well, because you can't
100%.
trust these people.
Of
They
course.
gave the wrong remains. They put
Right.
some anonymous woman. It's just, you can't make this up.
right?
Yeah.
But also, I think going back to what you said before, all of you, is that we need some sort of, just like I would love for there to be like the 7 Noahide laws of the UN or 10 commandments of reporting. We need to have some.
Yes, they're called journalistic standards. They just don't care about them.
Well, that's the thing. And no one ever talks about journalistic standards except us on this side. Yeah, I know you do. But most of us, unless we're in therapy about it at a Shabbos table or talking to our friends, we're the only ones going, how is that okay? When I hear that, like that should be the name of the show. How is that okay? And then we should actually have standards, because the way we're funneling this news, like how does someone honestly, well, we don't have any reporters in the Palestinian territories that are not working for Hamas, because you can get killed or hurt or harmed if you don't agree with what they say. They have to look through everything. No one ever talks about that. But there should be some sort of funneling process, because if you're standing there, even if you're at, if the mainstream media had reported it, how would they explain 5-year-old children that look completely well-fed, well-groomed, well-dressed, that are cheering while people are watching these coffins come out of 2 babies and hopefully a mother, right? How do you explain that? To me, something is wrong with the way that people are talking about it online, reporting it, and then of course people who don't even talk about it at all.
Well, it didn't get broadcast, and I'm beginning to think that they should have. Not from us, perhaps, but from the international media. I don't think they did us any favors by not showing the world what ghouls these people are, because there's no other way to look at it.
I've run out of adjectives. I've literally run out of adjectives, like monsters and beasts and animals.
Yeah.
There's nothing else to, I don't know what to call, soulless.
No,
they're just soulless.
They're monsters, and they're not animals, because animals don't do that.
No.
But I think the most upsetting thing for me, even though like after all of this nightmare of what happened with Bibas and the sending the wrong body, and then we have the hostage release of the remaining 6 alive hostages, and then, because that wasn't enough, they had the propaganda video that they released that same evening, Saturday night, of Eviata David and Guy Dalal Gilboa, or Gilboa Dalal, one of the other hostages. And they brought these 2 hostages to this whole ceremony that they put together in the vehicle right next to the Red Cross.
To watch.
Right next to the Red Cross. To watch and record their reaction.
And then beg
for their release.
And next to the Red Cross. So the Red Cross, I mean, you've been a scumbag so many times, but it just gets worse every week. You're there, you're the Red Cross. You see these 2 guys begging for their lives. You don't think, I don't know.
I genuinely wonder how people rationalize this. I think they just must have an intellectual block where they just can't think about it.
Yes.
And it just rattles them too much.
I think what they wind up saying is, well, it's the same on both sides, or you have people like Dave Smith.
That's how
who I might
people
talk
justify watching cruelty. They
Exactly.
say, oh, well, they do the same.
When people say, well, Hamas is just so small in number, they're nothing like the Nazis. They're so tiny. They're just a resistance group. Watch what you're saying, because they're funded by a much bigger network. Right.
Well, yes, and that's part of the stories last week. And maybe, Emily, you can give us a bit more details that we caught funding coming through Iran and stopped it.
This is nothing new. I mean, they've been doing that for many years.
But it's interesting that it's not Qatar that, I think Qatar has to be more careful these days. They can't do it without Israel's help.
I mean, Qatar is playing both sides, but Iran has been doing this for a long time. I mean, they gave approximately $100 million a year to Hamas.
And
They've done training for Hamas. While one of these hostage releases was going on, there were Hamas senior leaders meeting with Khamenei in Iran. Like, this is an ongoing thing.
But I think it's
very well documented.
We stopped it recently. There was somebody was caught. Right?
Yeah.
We stopped like a shipment of money coming in. At least we're on the ball about that. But the question now is, what happens in stage 2? What does Israel do?
Before we move to stage 2, I do want to speak about the 2 hostages who came home not to fanfare,
God, yes.
not in a matzav, in a condition, not in a condition where their families really could celebrate more than the first few minutes, because they realized, and I'm talking obviously about there were 2 hostages that were returned, Avram and
Mengistu.
Thank you, Mengistu, and Hisham al-Sayed, who were held by Hamas for 10 years.
10 years. And they were held there. They have both mental challenges.
Yes.
And they kind of wandered in. I think that was the story. 10 years. Now, before you go into your thing, just to show you that Hisham al-Sayed, they didn't put him on stage because he's an Arab Muslim. So they didn't want
They claimed that that's why. But in doing so, they actually admitted that the purpose of these ceremonies was to disrespect all of the hostages, including, by the way, the Jewish baby that they slaughtered. So...
But Hisham al-Sayed, they didn't put on stage because they didn't want the Arab world to see that they're as cruel to an Arab Muslim as they are to a Jew. And they didn't want to show that. So they kind of shuttled him on the side and didn't put him on stage. But go on, Shushan.
You know, it's so tragic that this is almost like identity politics, the Middle East version, because you just reminded me that Avera is an Ethiopian Jew. He's black.
Jew. Yeah.
And Black Lives Matter apparently shared Noah Tishby and maybe even Stand With Us is about his release. And Blake Flynn, his release. Where have you been? All of a sudden it matters because he's black? I mean, obviously it matters because he's black. What about everybody else?
Yeah.
Where have you been? All of a sudden Black Lives Matter has a freaking soul? I'm sorry.
The fact that the Jewish communities have reached out to Black Lives Matter about Avera Mengistu for many, many years.
10 years.
It makes me so mad. I can't even hold it in. So, and the father of Hisham is on a campaign. So that people understand that his son has been suffering so badly. It wasn't like they kept him for 10 years in some grandmother's house or in, I don't even know where. They kept him and starved him and beat him and tortured him. He doesn't speak.
He can't speak anymore.
He doesn't speak. He can't function as a human being. So imagine this father now has to think not, oh, I have my son back. Oh, my son was tortured for 10 years and he's not here.
He's broken.
And this has to be acknowledged. It just has to be acknowledged.
They basically abused and kept in a tunnel or holes 2 mentally challenged, 2 disabled individuals, an Ethiopian Jew and an Arab. And
when they went to hug him, he extended his hand like a handshake because he probably hasn't been hugged or had any
human connection.
Yeah, for 10 years.
You could see also in Hisham's face, Avera and Hisham, they just are not there. They don't know what's happening. They don't really understand. Their reunification with their families was upsetting to watch. I'm very happy for the families because I know, especially in the case of Avera Mengistu, actually both families, they've lobbied really, really hard. In fact, Hisham's family, an Arab Muslim Israeli family, actually stated explicitly, please don't release terrorists in exchange for our son. So there's like a huge divide here. And I think people don't understand because Hamas intentionally wants to hide this, not just from the Arab world, but from the general public, that this is who Hamas is. That this is what they are doing to human beings, regardless of what their race or ethnicity or religion is. And it's sickening to watch.
Sickening.
It's always so exhausting having to try to explain like what Israel is and the fact that there are, like, what does it matter if he's an Ethiopian Jew or an Ashkenazi Jew, or like, you don't kill people.
Yes.
You don't
Right.
kidnap people.
Yes.
You don't rape people. I hate that Jews always have to try to explain, like, well, we're a Middle Eastern tribe and we're multiracial. Like, what does it matter? Like, whether someone is black or someone is white, you don't kill people as a legitimate form of resistance. That's terrorism. Like, you're morally demented. You've been subverted. They lied to you. Like,
Yes, it should be so obvious.
yeah.
You're so right. But you know, Hisham's father went on Israeli TV on Saturday night and he said, where is my Arab Muslim community condemning this? Where are you?
And I wonder about that because I always say, where are the one or two Arabs standing there at the parade while this is all going on, this theater, and saying, this is not okay? Oh, because they would get harmed. That's why. Let's call that out too.
You know what happened?
beyond-
Hisham Sayed's family was there the entire day. The entire day, they were in the South passing out tea and coffee to all of the Israeli people. And they interviewed some of his family members and they asked them, like, what are you doing here? Like, you know, Hisham isn't being released in the same ceremony. I hate that I even have to say that. And they were like, it's fine. We know he's coming home. We want to support the people of Israel. We want to support them because this is wrong what's happened. Like, this is Israel.
Yes.
This is Israel.
Contrast, the one other thing we have to discuss is Nasrallah's funeral.
Oh,
that happened.
yes, of course.
Thank God for my notes.
Now that, yeah, thank you, Shoshana.
Keeping us on
You're
track.
going to make a great anchor, sweetie. Basically, why do they bury Nasrallah 4 months after we killed him?
You know why.
That's
They
one
had to search
question.
and find all the pieces.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so they had to put them together like a puzzle. That's a good image. But secondly, so they bury him. There's hundreds of thousands of people, including that moron, Jackson Hinkle. Right, so he's there. And all of a sudden, Israeli Air Force do a flyover and everybody, I think, soils their pants a little bit at that point because they're thinking, maybe they're going to bomb us now. Some people think that was just stam. That was really
like egoistic and
a little bit
that's
like
what I called it.
bravado.
I will acknowledge
and
that's
other
what I
people
called it.
were like,
It's amazing.
okay, so Emily, we know what side you're on.
Yeah.
I think this is, we're in the Middle East, which is
Yeah.
what Yosef says all the time. This is Middle East. This is going in the Middle East.
Yeah, I like it.
It's your...
We call it Ooga Booga.
As an Israeli politician, I wouldn't take
Shoshana,
any
you-
shit.
Shoshana, you
My
thought...
holy Jewish nation.
I love it.
It's a little bit more holy since you've been here, sweetheart.
Yes. I'll tell you what. At first I was like, oh, really? Like, do we have to have a flyover? Like, die, khalas, like, okay, we're cool,
We get
we're
it.
big, yeah. And then I listened, and Chaviv, this is to your credit. I listened to your podcast this morning on the way in, and you said something very interesting. You said that this whole conflict is one big message.
Yeah.
And talking about the conflict decades and decades ago. Hamas's conflict is, we will never stop trying to uproot the colonizer. We will never stop uprooting the artificial presence in our home, in our country. And the Jewish message is, we are not leaving, we belong here. And if I look at it in that vein, then that 400,000 people presentation funeral was a message of resistance, resistance, resistance. And that flyover was, we ain't going nowhere. And so,
Yes, yes.
so I have changed my mind.
Oh,
I have
very
changed
good.
my mind.
Good.
And I get it from both sides, but I also
Well,
think if
I'm
you're looking
glad-
at it that way, then yeah.
I'm glad it took Raviv Gatzingur to change your mind and not us, but we'll overlook that,
He used the
sweetheart.
words.
I'm going to be the one person.
Yalla.
As much as I agree with everything you guys have said, I'm conflicted because I believe that this message of this war, along with every other one that the Jewish people have been through, is about the Jewish message, which is do not become that which you do not like. And I'm not saying that they would do like just a little flyover and be like, hey, we're still here. in some ways it's harmless because it's harmless. We didn't use our power to bomb them like a lot of people who are more extreme than us at this table would say. Just get rid of it's enough already.
Anyone who's at Nasrallah's funeral is fair game.
I agree.
So I disagree. I would like to see us have that play. I mean, look, I'm
These
conflicted
are
about it.
terrorists.
I know.
They're not random civilians who we disagree with.
They are Hezbollah.
I think there are
of them.
civilians
And the
there who are
Islamic
very
regime.
misled and who have been indoctrinated as babies to hate because of all the curriculum
That's
that we
a
know that
security
is
risk
happening.
to the state of Israel.
100%.
That's a legitimate target in a declared state of war.
I totally agree with you. And I really stand by, and we've talked about this also, that we cannot afford to become the thing in the other that we do not like. And I think it was a little cocky. That's all. I'm a little conflicted by it.
We need cocky.
Okay. I can just see the comments now. Everyone's gonna be like, "Get rid of her. She's so liberal." I'm not liberal.
No, this is why we have varying views around the table. Because it's not the view like in
say that all the
America.
time.
This is the Quad and Friends. I'm going to add that, like Fox and Friends. But listen, it's a legitimate opinion. We disagree with you, but I just enjoyed that little show of, like you said, Shoshana, like Haviv said, we ain't going anywhere. And that should be the message. We ain't going anywhere.
Also, we have to put it in context and remember the fact that even this week, the Islamic regime in Iran stated that they are actively working to rebuild Hezbollah.
Yeah.
We wiped out the entire Hezbollah leadership in like 2 weeks.
Yes.
Everybody. Meanwhile, Khamenei is on Twitter like, "Oh, Hezbollah is the victor." Really? How'd that work out for you, dude? Yes. But anyway, they are trying to rebuild. So right now is the time that we need to send a message that if you do anything, we're watching you, we can get to you, and we will destroy you, and we will. Whether it's in Tehran, or in Beirut, or in Damascus, or anywhere else in the world.
Having said that, I also agree that I think that we've been very soft on crime in this country. And the more that I'm here and I see what's going on and the 1,000 convicted terrorists for people who are, innocent civilians that were raped and pillaged and killed in cold blood. That's ridiculous. And when Trump did come out and say, I'm here to counsel you, make it very beautiful, whatever, and have ideas on the table, we should have taken a piece of his playbook. So
I think the
Just
fact
the way
he's saying that gives us a lot of leeway to do what we need to do. And we've spoken about this on the show, but maybe what we should be considering is really capital punishment for arch terrorists.
Finally.
Yeah, and then they wouldn't have to be swapped. But
the way we do it should be with as much grace as possible.
Well, that's why we have a judicial system. Like, we're not talking about hanging people in the streets like they're already doing in Syria with anyone who is with Assad.
Or celebrating it. We don't celebrate it.
An actual system where someone is executed because they are convicted of murder.
Exactly.
Like, I think that's pretty fair.
Yeah. That's pretty fair. We wouldn't be the only country in the world and nobody talks about them.
Exactly. I think we should mention that talking about the ceremonies and the mockery that they're making of us and our acceptance of it on Shabbat, first of all, that needs to change.
Yep.
They do it on purpose.
Of course
they do it. The more that the Jewish people are divided, the more the Jewish people go against God's commandments, that is their goal. That is their goal. So first of all, no more Shabbat. But second of all, Bibi finally took a stand and said, we're not going to release these prisoners. They were on the buses out in freedom and they went, and they turned back around and went back to prison because Bibi said, if you don't promise that you're not going to do more ceremonies, we're not releasing any prisoners. Finally.
And then the United States said, Israel's within their rights because of what we saw, the cruelty of what we saw with the Bibases this weekend.
And as far as I know, they haven't been released.
They haven't been released. And now we'll see what happens next week. We did not have time to talk about it this week on the show, but we move on to our next segment. Okay, everyone. And now for our very favorite Scumbag of the Week. And as every week, so many scumbags, so little time. But let's start with you, Shoshana.
My scumbag of the week is a duo, actually. Karen Atias and Peter Redacted Baynard, who I really, really hate. You guys wrote books, very anti-Israel books, and you had your whole Israel bashing book fest. I don't really have all the words that I wanted to. I have the words, I just can't put them on air. You're gross, you're disgusting, I can't stand you. And you are on the wrong side of history. It is disgusting, Peter, disgusting the way you betray your people for $1. So I hope you enjoy your dollars because there's a special place in hell for you when you get there. Close your mouth, come to this country and understand what your people are going through. And Karen, maybe stop teaching at Columbia because you're just ruining the next generation. Thanks, guys, for being my scumbags of the week.
Wow, that's quite a scumbag. And Peter, really, we haven't mentioned him before. I think I had a little Twitter argument with him way back. He really is a piece of horse manure. And so I'm very happy that you made him a scumbag. Emily?
Isn't his book like Being Jewish after October 7th
Yes.
or something? Like,
Yes.
so.
After the destruction of Gaza.
Being a self-hating Jew.
Show me the Muslim that writes being Muslim after October 7th. Show me that.
I'm sure they will. It'll be all about how they're the victim.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, you're right.
Emily?
So my scumbag this week, we already discussed a little bit, but Jackson Hinkle, this pathetic, terror-supporting piece of shit. Sorry, you'll have to bleep
Who
that.
is he? Tell us a bit about him.
He actually, at his, originally, he was a left-wing activist in the U.S. And then he sort of like turned because like maybe someone was giving him funding from a certain giant country invading Ukraine right now.
Starts with Q, maybe?
No, Russia. He's a Putin fanboy. And has been for quite some time. So that's sort of how he got like a lot of activity on social media, which seems very inorganic, I have to say. However, after that, with the whole October 7th thing and everything going on, he's become virulently anti-Israel, pro-Islamist, pro-terror, explicitly supporting Hezbollah, the Houthis, Hamas, the Islamic regime in Iran. All of these he has supported explicitly on social media, in interviews, in his own content. And he was invited to this celebration in Beirut. It's really a shame we didn't use that flyover for more, but that's okay.
Really?
For now.
Just
next
for him,
time.
just for him, it
next
would've been
time around. But yeah, of course, he was in attendance and posted many things, including him almost soiling himself while the planes flew overhead. I'm very, very much looking forward to his return at some point to the United States of America under the new FBI director, Kash Patel, who I am now appealing to you to please arrest Jackson Hinkle. Finally, this has been going on for years. It is explicitly against U.S. law. These are U.S. designated terror organizations. Flying across the world to support and shill terrorist organizations is providing support to a terrorist organization. So do something. Enough is enough.
Kash Patel and Pat Bondi.
And
Pam Bondi, that's right.
Pam Bondi, and she's tough. That's what we have to do.
Yep.
Okay, looking forward to that when we update you about what's happened to him. Daniel.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Dr. Enoch Wilf famously explained that nothing will ever satisfy an anti-Semite. They'll always require another pound of flesh until there's nothing left of you, or until you're Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart is a gray shell of his former self, bitter and blinded by extremist far-left ideologies. And he has no idea that he's completely out of touch with reality. He is very concerned about Palestinians. Well, John, Palestinians aren't concerned about you. In fact, if you set foot in Gaza or in the Palestinian territories and announced, "Hi, I'm Jon Stewart, a Jew from New York. I want to help you," they'd likely rip you limb from limb because their leadership are jihadists like ISIS or Al-Qaeda or Boko Haram. That's the problem. They're Islamists and have been radicalized by their leadership. That's why there are checkpoints and security measures to manage them from entering Israel from their territory, to stop them from killing everyone like they did on October 7th, which you never mention. Like how you never mention the hostages, even the American hostages, or the sick ceremony they threw celebrating the murder of 2 Jewish babies and their mother. That's the problem, John. Their unwillingness to stop killing Jews. See, they're the descendants of the Arab colonizers who came to the Levant from Arabia to conquer the Jews of Judea. And it drives them crazy that these Jews managed to build a thriving, prosperous nation. Stop lying to yourself and the world about who is the oppressed and who is the oppressor. Most decent people understand the difference between good and evil. So I suggest you do some soul searching. And until then, stay far away from our holy Jewish nation.
Yes. Daniel Ryan in the house.
I wouldn't want to
Okay.
be Jon Stewart after
I
that.
wouldn't want to be, and I'm Barb. Share another one with us.
It's so funny because I didn't know which scumbag you were doing this week. And I'm also talking about a self-hating Jew who spews propaganda
They're
from
the
a certain
worst.
thing that rhymes with Kreslin Brotherhood.
Don't invite them to Shabbat dinner.
No. I
Khalas.
need them at Shabbat dinner. I daven for them every morning before Shema Kolenu. I say Jon Stewart, and I also add Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, and the following people.
Don't pray for them. It's a waste of energy.
It's not a waste of energy.
All right, Barb.
Okay,
All right, Barb.
pray for.
Take it away, Barb.
My scumbag who I'd like to invite for Shabbat and have a life-changing, full of epiphanies and large steaming hot cup of maybe I was wrong coffee with is comedian Dave Smith. I've mentioned you before on this show. I really don't want to hate you. I really want to love you. And I pray that I have enough compassion and can look at you from the side of Dan l'chaf zchut, which in Hebrew, if you ever would look up a Hebrew book, means to judge you on the side of merit, because you're such a good speaker. You speak, you're funny, you sell out shows, but you're using all of your energy, it seems to me, to lift up or prop up. You like to use the words prop up the Muslim Brotherhood's agenda. And I did a deep dive on you because I'm really trying to understand how someone who says they were raised Jewish, I looked into this, like, I guess your dad left. I'm sorry about that. Maybe you're dealing with that, the father figure of God, like issues. I'm really trying to understand you. No, I really want to understand because some of my family's like this. Like I have friends and family and comedian friends who go out there and literally say horrible things about Jews and the IDF. And I try to understand. So I get that there's probably something going on there and maybe you're upset with God. You recently found God. I'm so happy. I'm talking about ideology. There's a word that you seem to use flagrantly, and it's called the truth. You say, well, somebody's got to tell the truth. You sound a little bit like Whoopi Goldberg, who also says that often on The View. You seem to think that the truth is just these 80 years of history that you learned about at your private school in Brooklyn. I'm not sure we went to college. I tried to find that too. I was trying to figure out who your professors were.
Maybe TikTok.
I don't know. Yeah, I can't. TikTok's hard. But you have this truth that you say, which supports the Muslim Brotherhood narrative. You were on a bunch of different podcasts. One was a Christian libertarian anarchist one where they were spouting talks about Christian theology, and you seemed to just go, yeah, that sounds good. You were on the Dean show. This guy, what is his name? I'm trying to think of the Dean show at PBD, Piers Morgan, Tucker Carlson. You literally sat there and on Eddie Redzavic's show, where he has a bumper at the beginning of the show and at the end supporting the new center of the Muslim Brotherhood in New York City. And on the bottom of where it says your name, it says Jew, comedian Dave Smith, Palestinian/Israeli conflict. The S in Israeli is a $sign. So even the title on YouTube is a propagandist mission. And he's quoting the Quran and you're like, yeah, that sounds good. And as soon as he brings up the Torah or Bible, you're like, oh no, that's like a funhouse version of the truth. So please figure out and start to use the word ideology and really look into the ideology of the Muslim Brotherhood and all these other people that you seem to just go, yeah, that sounds good. Because when you're standing or sitting on these podcasts, Joe Rogan, Tucker Carlson, Piers Morgan, in front of millions of people, and your name says Jew or the Jewish perspective, and you call yourself a Jew, you don't represent most of us. And I feel like you need to at least explore what the ideologies are behind these things, because you're not getting it right. And it's really sad when you call it the truth. Just come over to Israel. I don't think you've ever been here. You'll notice that most of us here look like libertarians, and that's the truth.
Don't come to Israel. We don't want you here.
I want you here. I want to take you
You're
around.
Intellectually dishonest. I think you know exactly what you're doing.
I agree.
And you're not welcome
I
here.
think you realize that it's good for clicks to hate on your own people, and you'll get invited to lots of places. As the Jewish perspective, that throws your own people under the bus. And I think he's worked it out, because I didn't even know who the hell he was before this war. So there you go. That's my perspective.
Barb is much nicer than us.
Barb is the good song.
Can you imagine, though, the day that he and Norm Finkelstein and Gabor Mate and George Schwartz, aka Soros, actually wake up and go, oh my God, look at all the damage that I caused.
You know why? Because they've spent billions of dollars supporting our demise as a country.
They're too invested in it. They can never be honest with themselves.
But they eventually are going to have to answer to a higher power.
Exactly.
I'd like to make it sooner so that they can actually clean up some of the mess that they've done.
Yes,
that's on your hands. You have blood on your hands.
I'm not against that. All right, well, talking about people that we don't want in our country, my scumbag this week shares my name, Rima Hassan. Yes, double S2. Anyway, who is Rima Hassan? She is I guess Palestinian, even though she was born in, I think she was born in Syria, in a Syrian Palestinian refugee camp. Nobody asks why there has to be a refugee camp in Syria after so many years. And maybe that's Syria's fault, who started 2-3 wars against us, but nobody talks about that. Rima Hassan is now living in France, and she's an MEP, a member of the European Parliament, and of course celebrated October 7th, calls for boycotts on Israel, in the European Union, and is an all-round scumbag who hates us. And she's, of course, part of the scumbag party in France, La France Soumise, which really is, La France Insoumise, unsubmission France, but you really are submissioned or submitted to Islamic ideology. That's really what you are. Well, whatever. Anyway, Rima Hassan was coming to Israel yesterday with another mission of hateful MEPs who are coming here to do a roadshow of hatred. And somebody in the Israeli government, thank the Lord, cottoned on. As she was flying in, my French friends were going crazy because they all know who she is. And they were writing to me, what are we going to do about it? So eventually, I think Gidon Sar, the foreign minister, and Amichai Chikli, the minister for diaspora affairs, called Moshe Arbel, who is the interior minister. And when this biatch landed, she was sent right back. And so, yes, a scumbag indeed with a happy ending. You don't get to have the privilege of walking around and using our freedoms to malign us. And that's why you were on a plane back. And I'm actually even happy that you were I'm happy she was on a plane here and then sent back. Yeah. It's better than not being on the plane at all.
100%.
Because that just makes your humiliation even better. Yes, now I'm becoming very Middle Eastern. So bye.
Bye.
We've got to make sure all these people never are allowed to come in here.
I agree 100%. You, in America, you have to sign a form. Have you said anything subversive against to be let in? We shouldn't be letting them in because they're only going to use our kindness to use it against us. Okay, so now that we've gotten all of the scumbaggery off our chests, we go to our holy, I'm going to use your word now, heroes. Heroes of the week. Emily, who's your hero this week?
So my hero relates to my scumbag, and we already kind of talked about it a little bit, but the Israeli Air Force. From the beginning of this war, I don't think any individual body of the army has done quite as much as the Air Force, although that's not a knock to any of our soldiers on the ground, of course, who are heroes. But the Israeli Air Force is legendary. They always have been. What they've done in Lebanon and Syria alone, and also Iran and Yemen, which is probably not over yet. But what they've done in these countries is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, it is just unbelievable what they've been able to accomplish and the way that they've been able to really change the entire Middle East with this conflict. Yes, we're still dealing with Hamas on the ground. We're still dealing with the challenge of terrorism, and it's probably not going to go away like that. It's not going to happen overnight. But the way they have restructured the Middle East and to limit the power of the Islamic regime and their colonization and occupation efforts throughout the region is unprecedented. And so to all of the Israeli Air Force, thank you, first and foremost. And I think I feel pretty comfortable saying thank you on behalf of the rest of the people in the Middle East who have been living under these dictatorships and terror groups that have hijacked their countries in Lebanon and Syria in particular. And I think that what they did with the funeral of Nasrallah is epic, and I hope that we do more. And when we do more, that we take out the people we need to take out. And that's it. That's my hero of the week.
Absolutely. The best heroes. And I've visited some of Air Force bases, and they are are the nicest guys, and they're also really cute. Just saying. All right. Daniel, what's your...
Fleur likes the pilots.
Speaking of cute guys, Daniel.
Thank you. So my hero is Omer Shem Tov for surviving his captivity. There's that amazing story that he, people don't realize I think we realize, but the hostages have lived through the Holocaust.
Yes, I agree.
The past 16 months, this is the experience of the Holocaust for these individuals.
Yes.
And when we see them released, it's haunting.
Yeah.
But he basically, him and his friend, they timed out through the calls of prayers. They figured out when Shabbat was happening.
Really?
And he saved a little bit of grape juice and a little bit of pita, and he would observe Kiddush when he was in captivity.
Oh, wow.
And having, seeing him go through the whole ceremony when they told him to kiss the Hamas person beside him, you could see the look on his face, what?
What? Yeah.
And he did it, and I could see him the whole time, just get me the F out of here.
Yes,
but
true.
He's a survivor.
Smile away, yeah.
Seeing him with his family, they all seem like such wonderful people.
They're
So,
wonderful people.
We got to take the small little miracles that we have in these horrible times.
You're
Did you
100%.
see the video of, I think it was his grandfather making Havdalah that night, on the Shabbat night? Oh, you have got, look it up. There's a video of them
putting
all
it
in
right
the
now.
hospital. Oh, put it right now. Of them all in the hospital, and his grandfather's making Havdalah, and then they pan, it's just them at first, then they pan out, and it's all the hostages who came home, and it's all of their families. It is magnificent. It is Israel. The tattoos, the kippas, everyone together. It is absolutely magnificent. Well done.
I feel so bad for all these Jewish celebrities that don't want to help Israel or be involved. I feel so blessed that I was able to be a part of this and learn all these stories and meet all these people. I think it's so sad that they've locked themselves away in their little mansions and they're so scared of losing followers or losing friends when this is the most important thing in the world to be doing.
You have a backbone, and they don't.
Yeah.
And they're more scared of losing their status quo and being comfortable than they are of losing Havdalah. Because if we, God forbid, if these 57 countries were to literally use all of their networks and everyone were to go, I don't want to interrupt, and they take over the world, God forbid, it will be illegal to keep Havdalah.
It would be illegal to do anything. It would be illegal to be any of us what we are. Barb, who's your
hero of the week is Officer Tatum. I found you during Officer Tatum, Brandon Tatum.
Oh.
He's got his own podcast. He's an African-American Christian who has an awesome accent. I love listening to you. Man, you're wonderful. Just love it. I can't do really. I've never imitated you, but I emulate you, and I quote you a lot. I found you during lockdown, during COVID in 2021, and I used to write you, and you've never returned my calls. But maybe now you will, because you're my hero of the week. You just have such a clear understanding of the ideologies that are at war right now. You understand what the Christian ideology is in my book, what I think it is. You understand democracy, you understand Judaism. You also understand what Islamic jihad is, and you call it out. And I love that you specifically say it's not a genocide in Gaza. When they do it to Israel, it's fine. But when Israel does it, it's a genocide. They lost. They lose it. I love that. And I hope you don't mind that I'm appropriating your accent. It's only just to imitate you. It's amazing to me how many Jewish people, like we were just talking about, with a platform do a lousy job, like Dave Smith, come for Shabbos, at educating people about what's really going on in Israel, what the truth is. It's not okay. It's dangerous. And I know that you're a big fan of Candace Owens, and I want you to talk to her, because she hasn't returned my calls either, and really get her clear on what the ideologies are that are at play. Ed Hussein also was great this week. He did the same thing. We have Muslims, we have Christians who are calling this out, and so many Jews who have platforms are not. So help me help them.
Oh my God. Thank you, Barbara. I didn't know about this person, but now I will search.
He's great, and he has a really big platform.
Really?
Yeah.
Shoshana.
So my hero also is related to my scumbag. I know you like that, Fleur. Yes. So my heroine, why don't we say heroine? Whatever. Anyway, Naya Levon, I hope I'm saying that correctly. She, at this DC event to bash Israel, in a room full of haters, went after Karen Atias, the writer and Columbia professor, for her support of the October 7th atrocities, and she didn't back down. Not only did Karen not back down from her support, but Nyla did not back down. She had to be removed from the room, and she gave it to both of them, but mostly to Karen, saying, you are a jihad supporter, you are a genocide supporter, you are on the wrong side of history. And she said what all of us at home were thinking, but no one else in that room had the guts to say, you, my friend, I would love to meet one day. You could come for Shabbat to my house. Yeah. Thank you for saying what needed to be said. You guys watch this video.
Post, I'm responsible for it. You know what I'm saying? If I'm woman enough to post something, I have to be held accountable to the statements that I post. So what I want to ask you, I want to ask you a question of how do you correspond or reconcile your Christianity when on October the 7th, you retweeted this, you said, what? You liked the retweet, you liked the tweet, and you said, what did you think decolonization meant? Vibes, papers, essays, losers. You like that retweet. I want to just explain to you.
I can answer your question.
No. I will explain to you what happened so we can be very clear.
I will answer your question.
Rape happened. How do you reconcile that with rape? How the hell do you reconcile that with a woman being raped? She was raped. She was shiny look. Her body was taken away. Is rape okay with you?
Can we actually?
No, rape is okay with you. You damn jihad. It is okay with you to rape with you.
I think you let Karen answer.
It was fantastic,
right?
And it was so.
I just watched it.
It was so evil. Like the one, her name's Karen.
Yeah.
At the end, as Nyla was being kicked out, she was like, well, I support the Palestinian liberation movement. It was like this evil smile. I will not apologize for supporting the Palestinian liberation movement.
Yeah.
And all these clueless people are like it was like, this is like the Twilight Zone.
It's the Twilight
that
Zone.
I don't want to be a part of.
Yes.
I want to be safe and sound with Jews. I don't want to be around these people. I can't live in that country. I will go to Miami or Austin.
Move to Boca.
Jews or cowboys. That's it for me.
About Jewish
What
cowboys?
about Persians, Daniel?
Oh yeah, Beverly Hills.
Daniel and I are coming to Tehran
Yes.
the second the regime falls.
Beverly Hills Persians.
Yes,
Right now.
yes.
Yeah.
Beverly Hills Persians.
Yes.
Absolutely. And my heroes, I'm going to bring the mood down a bit, but I have to talk about people, the unsung heroes of all of this real heart anguishing pain. And that is those people who work in Abu Kabir, which is the facility that identifies the bodies. And I was thinking about it this morning. I'm thinking, who's my hero? And I thought, the people that we don't know their names, we don't know who they are, but the people who have to do the most heartbreaking task of unearthing these coffins, opening them up and identifying the bodies, and especially this week.
Not only the bodies, but the cause of death as well.
The cause of death, to understand before anyone the depravity of the enemy and the suffering of the victims. And so I don't know who you are. I'm sure that you don't tell people what you do, and that you carry that load with you and you take it home with you. And I really hope you get the therapy and you get that type of help that you need in order to process. But the job that you do is no less than holy, because somebody has to do it and you're doing it with sensitivity, with care, and you have to carry that burden home. So I just wanted to give them a shout out to those unsung heroes, sending them a little prayer for strength. And thank you for everything that you do. And with that prayer, we know that this Saturday we have, if everything goes to plan, this Shabbat, we have the rest of the people who were killed and who are part of phase A, the first phase of the agreement. We pray that the phase 2 of the agreement happens swiftly, and we bring those people home. It is estimated that there's another 30 alive, and the rest are dead bodies from the 60 odd that are left. And so for their families and for our country and for the beginning of our healing, I pray that we get them home as soon as possible. See you next week.